Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Falag, and I have created this short video to explain the requirements for Essay 3, an argument essay that has to have refutation and use MLA style. So let's get started. You know the topic of Essay 3 because many of you have already submitted outlines. State your position on whether you believe Cora succeeded in her quest, and then identify 3 factors that were most critical in terms of her success or failure. And the requirements, in addition to having a thesis, is to have a refutation paragraph. So this essay will be at least 6 paragraphs. You need to use 3 sources. The novel is required, plus 2 articles or videos, anything that we've used in our class that pertains to this topic. You do not need to go out and find new sources. We don't have time for that, right? And in addition, you need to use MLA in-text citations and a separate works cited page. Okay, so I thought I would just give you an example so that I could walk through the essay and explain the different requirements and the parts. So here's an example of a thesis where this student says Cora did not succeed in her journey because slave catchers pursued her, she failed to return to her known world, and it is uncertain whether she attained freedom. So you can see her 3 main points in her argument about slave catchers, no return to the plantation, and uncertain freedom. So here is a sample body paragraph that would relate to the first point in this argument. During Cora's journey northward, she faced mental and physical challenges that stemmed primarily from her constant fear of capture by slave hunters, particularly Arnold Ridgway. So this is the topic sentence for the first body paragraph that would deal with this first point. Okay. Notice the citation here, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So let me show you the parts of this paragraph. I put them in color here so that you could see that not only is there a clear topic sentence that includes one of the factors that this writer has identified that contributed to Cora's failure, okay, was that there were always these slave hunters, particularly Ridgway. And there are 2 main pieces of support in this paragraph. First, there are a few sentences about Arnold Ridgway in particular, and then secondly, there are more sentences that explain how persistent other slave hunters, patrollers enforcers were, as described in the book. And then the last sentence restates the main point. It's a summary sentence. So in the first sentence, we know that the writer thinks that because of the constant presence of slave hunters, Cora cannot be considered free. And then the last sentence reiterates that. Under these conditions, runaway slaves, as represented by Cora, were constantly pursued and thus could never achieve internal freedom. Okay. So again, these are the 3 main points that are going to be covered in the body paragraphs. I'm not going to present all 3 body paragraphs, but you get the idea. Now the next part of the essay is the one that is new, and that is the refutation. So I'm just kind of going back through the refutation page, which was presented, I think, in week 5, and just explaining the different parts that you need to include in this paragraph. First of all, the easiest way to do this is to make it a separate paragraph. So in the first sentence, you want to state the opposing side's position, but because it's opposite of your position, you need to begin with a contrast transition, like on the other hand. Okay? So, for example, here's a good first sentence for a refutation paragraph. On the other hand, some people think Cora succeeded in her quest for freedom. Okay, you can't just stop there by presenting the opposing side. You need to take a one or two more sentences to explain the opposing side. In other words, why do they believe this way? Okay, so you have to explain with some reasons why the opposing side takes this position. And then finally, you want to present your own argument. So this is a counter argument because you're trying to refute or knock down what the opposing side says. So in the sentences 3 to 4 through the rest of this paragraph, then you should begin first with a contrast transition, like however. Okay, so here would be a good first sentence for the beginning of your counter argument or refutation. However, this position lacks credibility. And then, of course, you're going to spend the rest of the paragraph explaining your position and why the opposing position is weak. Okay? So you're going to use details, examples from sources, and you can also restate in different words ideas that you've already presented in your essay. You might use a phrase like "as previously stated" to begin, a reiteration of a point you had already made. So basically, the refutation paragraph has these two main parts. One, you introduce and explain the opposing side's viewpoint, and then two, you refute or knock down or counter argue this opposing viewpoint. Okay? This brings us to, where do you put this paragraph in your essay? Traditionally, most people make it the fifth paragraph in the essay. So first paragraph, introduction, second, third, and fourth, those are your three body paragraphs with your main points. And then after that comes the refutation. You can also make this the second paragraph in your essay. First, you have the introduction that ends with your thesis, and then you have a refutation with the opposing side, and then you present your three pieces of argument in three body paragraphs, and then the conclusion. Let's look at an example, okay? Okay, so remember that this writer believes that Cora did not succeed, okay? So the first sentence in this paragraph says, some may argue that while the ending of the Underground Railroad was left ambiguous, Cora achieved her goal because she gained independence the moment she escaped the plantation with Caesar. They contend that Cora took this difficult decision on her own as a teenager, and through every hardship and tragedy she faced from the moment she left to the end of the story, she was able to survive as a freed person. Okay, so all these sentences in red introduce and explain the opposing side. And then we begin the refutation with the sentence, however, this interpretation is based on speculation, not fact. In truth, the closing pages of Cora's story are so imprecise that neither the protagonist nor the reader can discern exactly where she was or whether she became free. After Cora successfully fought Ridgway in an underground railroad tunnel, the narrator describes how she started to pump a handcar. She pumped and rolled out of the light into the tunnel that no one had made that led nowhere. So I'm not going to read the rest of it, but basically this counter argument is trying to say we have no evidence that Cora succeeded because she didn't know where she was. She didn't know what direction she was going in. Only when she comes out of the tunnel does she learn that there are some wagons that are going west, not north, even though the last chapter is called The North. So therefore, the whole thing is inconclusive, it's ambiguous, it's unclear. We don't know what's going to happen next to Cora. So you can read this on your own. So besides refutation, which is enough of a pain in the neck, you also have to include in-text citations. The easiest kind is from the book. You can see here in sentence 1 that we have the author's last name followed by a range of page numbers. I wanted to show you this one to explain that if you have a whole section in a paragraph that all talks about one part of the story in the novel, then put the citation after the first sentence. And then the reader will know that the rest of this part also comes from these pages. Okay? Only if you change to another event in the story, like something, a totally different activity, then you would have to have another citation, Whitehead, with different pages. Okay, now these are some other examples of in-text citations. The first one is, you remember the video, What is Freedom, by Ruben Dari? So this is a video or a short text. It has no page numbers, but we do know the author. So here's the citation to use. The second one would be, say, for example, we had an article and we used, the article did not have page numbers. It was only one page, but it didn't have an author. Okay, so this is the citation you would use. And then the third example I've given is one that you will probably need in your essay 3. You have not read the book in what's the name of it? The Heroes book that Joseph Campbell wrote. You have read articles that summarize his idea. Okay, so this is how you deal with that. You have to use quoted in and then the title of the article, okay, because Joseph Campbell is not the author of these articles. These articles are written by other people who are explaining the ideas of Joseph Campbell. Okay, so I think these are the three, aside from the novel, most common types of citations that you will need to use in Essay 3. And finally, you need to have a Works Cited page. This is a separate page with the title Works Cited. And I suggest that you review the MLA Works Cited page, which is in week 5. Here is a good citation for our book. Okay, you can see that there's a lot of pieces of information that are required here, so you need to review that page in week 5 to see what's required. You might also try one of these online, they call it citation creators. Here's one called BibMe. If you follow this link, you can input the information like the title of the text, the source, the author, the year, etc., and it will automatically create a bibliography citation for you. Not sure how easy this is to do, but it's just an idea. Okay, so if you have other questions about Essay 3, please email me. You're not bothering me. Everybody stay safe, and I will talk to you again in another video or in a Zoom conference.